FastMCP 3 implements dynamic component visibility through tag-based filtering, enabling runtime control over tool exposure without modifying core functionality. This namespace activation pattern leverages the disable method with tag selectors to globally hide grouped components, while session-specific enable components calls provide on-demand access. The upcoming code demonstrates how to organize tools into logical namespaces using tag prefixes. Establish activation triggers that modify session visibility state and maintain a clean separation between globally disabled components and session-level overrides. You'll observe the initialization of a FastMCP server with tagged tool groups, the creation of activation utilities that manipulate component visibility through the context interface, and the final global disablement that establishes the default hidden state for all namespace tools.
From FastMCP, import FastMCP. From FastMCP server context, import context. Server equals FastMCP, multi-domain assistant. Hash finance namespace. At server, tool tags equals namespace, finance. Def analyze portfolio symbols. List SDR. Return F analysis for joint symbols. At server, tool tags equals namespace, finance. Def get market data symbol, SDR dict. Return symbol price, 150.25. Hash admin namespace. At server, tool tags equals namespace, admin. Def list users, list SDR. Return Alice, Bob, Charlie. Hash activation tools, always visible. At server tool. Async def activate financic text, context SDR. Await CTX, enable component tags equals namespace, finance. Return finance tools activated. At server tool. Async def activated minktex, context SDR. Await CTX, enable component tags equals namespace, admin. Return admin tools activated. At server tool. Async def deactivate alttext, context SDR. Await CTX, reset visibility. Return all namespaces deactivated. Hash disable namespace tools globally. Server disable tags equals namespace finance. Namespace admin.
This code demonstrates namespace-based tool organization and activation in FastMCP 3 using a utility pattern for dynamic component visibility control. The implementation organizes tools into logical groups finance and admin namespaces using tag prefixes like namespace, finance, then globally disables these namespaces by default. Activation tools like activate finance and activate admin use the context objects, enable components, method to selectively expose namespace-tagged tools for individual sessions, while deactivate all resets to global defaults. The pattern leverages FastMCP's visibility system, where components can be dynamically enabled or disabled at runtime using tags as group identifiers. By prefixing tags with namespace, the code creates a consistent naming convention for organizational grouping. The global disable call at the end ensures all namespace tools start hidden, while activation tools provide on-demand access through session-specific visibility rules that override global settings. This approach offers several advantages. It prevents tool proliferation in client interfaces by default, supports progressive disclosure of features, and enables role-based access patterns without requiring separate server instances. The trade-off is slightly increased complexity in managing visibility state, though the Context API simplifies session-level control. The pattern is particularly useful for multi-tenant applications, where different users need access to different toolsets within the same server instance. Let's break it down.
From FastMCP, import FastMCP.
Imports the FastMCP class from the FastMCP module, which provides the core server functionality for implementing Model Context Protocol (MCP) services. This import alone doesn't create any server instance or configure behavior. It just makes the class available for instantiation.
From FastMCP server context, import context.
Imports the context class from FastMCP server context module, providing access to MCP session capabilities like logging, progress reporting, and resource management within FastMCP components.
Server equals FastMCP, multi-domain assistant.
Creates a FastMCP server instance with the identifier multi-domain assistant that will be visible to clients during MCP protocol handshakes. The string parameter serves solely as a human-readable label for server identification and does not configure any operational behavior or functional modes.
At server, tool tags equals namespace, finance. Def analyze portfolio symbols. List SDR.
Defines a FastMCP tool named Analyze Portfolio that accepts a list of stock symbols and returns a string result. The decorator, @server tool, registers this function as an MCP tool with the tag, namespace, finance, making it discoverable and callable through the MCP protocol. The function signature specifies it takes a list of strings as input and returns a string output.
Return F analysis for join symbols.
Returns a formatted string that begins with analysis for, followed by a comma-separated list of symbols. The join method concatenates the elements of the symbols, iterable into a single string with commas as separators. This creates a human-readable output indicating which symbols are being analyzed.
At server, tool tags equals namespace, finance. Def get market data symbol, SDR dict.
Defines a FastMCP tool named getMarketData that accepts a string parameter symbol and returns a dictionary. The tool is tagged with namespace, finance for grouping and visibility control purposes.
Return symbol, symbol price, 150.25.
Returns a dictionary with two key value pairs. Symbol, mapped to the value of the symbol, variable, and price, mapped to the float value 150.25. This creates a structured data object that associates a symbol identifier with its corresponding price value.
At server, tool tags equals namespace, admin. Def list users, list SDR.
Defines a FastMCP tool named listUsers that returns a list of strings, tagged with namespace, admin for administrative grouping. The decorator registers this function as an MCP tool with the specified tag, making it discoverable and callable through the MCP protocol.
Return Alice, Bob, Charlie.
Returns a list containing 3 string elements: Alice, Bob, and Charlie.
At server tool, async def activate financic text, context SDR.
Defines an asynchronous tool function named activateFinance that takes a context object as input and returns a string. The @server tool decorator registers this function as an MCP tool, making it callable through the Model Context Protocol with the default name activateFinance unless overridden. The function signature indicates it operates within the FastMCP framework's tool system, where CTX provides access to MCP capabilities like logging and resource management during execution.
Await CTX. Enable components tags equals namespace, finance.
Enables all components tagged with namespace, finance, in the current MCP context, making them visible and accessible for client operations. The operation is asynchronous, waiting for completion before proceeding. Components matching this tag will appear in client queries and can be invoked, while those without this tag remain unaffected by this call.
Return finance tools activated.
Returns the string finance tools activated as the result of the function or method execution. This indicates successful activation of finance-related tools in the FastMCP 3 system.
At server tool, async def activated minktex, context SDR.
Defines an asynchronous tool function named activateAdmin that takes a context, object as input, and returns a string. The @server tool decorator registers this function as an MCP tool, making it callable through the model context protocol with the name activateAdmin unless explicitly overridden. The function signature indicates it operates within the MCP context system, allowing access to session capabilities like logging and resource management during execution.
Await CTX. Enable components tags equals namespace, admin.
Enables all components tagged with namespace, admin, in the current context, making them visible and accessible for client operations. The await indicates this is an asynchronous operation that completes when the components are ready for use.
Return admin tools activated.
Returns the string admin tools activated as the output of the function. This serves as a confirmation message indicating that administrative tools have been successfully enabled or accessed.
At server tool, async def deactivate outtext, context SDR.
Defines an asynchronous tool function named deactivateAll that takes a context parameter and returns a string. The @server tool decorator registers this function as an MCP tool, making it callable through the model context protocol with the default name deactivateAll unless overridden. The function signature indicates it will perform some operation using the provided context and return a string result.
Await CTX. Reset visibility.
Resets the visibility state of the current MCP context to its default configuration. This asynchronous operation clears any previous visibility filters or modifications, restoring the original set of visible components for the session. The call awaits completion before proceeding, ensuring visibility changes are fully applied.
Return all namespaces deactivated.
Returns a string literal indicating that all namespaces have been deactivated. This serves as a status message or confirmation response when namespace deactivation completes successfully.
Server.disable tags equals namespace finance, namespace admin.
Disables all components tagged with either namespace, finance, or namespace, admin on the FastMCP server. Any component that has at least one of these tags will be hidden from client queries and cannot be invoked. The disable operation uses tag-based filtering, where a single matching tag is sufficient to disable a component. This implementation demonstrates FastMCP3's namespace activation pattern for dynamic tool visibility control. By tagging tools with namespace prefixes like namespace, finance, and namespace, admin, the code organizes functionality into logical groups that can be managed collectively. The global disable call at initialization hides all namespace tools by default, while activation tools use the context interfaces, enable components, method to selectively expose functionality per session. This creates a clean separation between global defaults and session-specific overrides, enabling progressive disclosure of features without modifying core functionality. The pattern's key advantage is supporting role-based access in multi-tenant applications through runtime visibility control. Though it introduces some complexity in managing visibility, state that the Context API helps mitigate.
The sleeping decorator stirs. Finance tools flicker into existence, summoned by tags like fireflies in the server's dark.